Da, da, da. So we had to go to page 24 and we were going to do like this whole thing beginning to end. We're going to use all calculator strategies, okay? So we are going to get our frequency histogram from our calculator. Yay. So this is good for you, right? We do have to do, I think, one thing by hand to get it started, but then we're going to go ahead and describe the shape of our data. So things that we learned yesterday. Words that describe the shape of the data in the histogram. And then we're going to find the 3 centers. And then remember, some centers are easy to find. Some centers you have to kind of do a little bit more digging. All right, so our first task is of 2 things. Probably let's just go ahead and get our data in the calculator. This is about looking at 24 different hospitals. And there probably are at least 24 different hospitals if you think about Western, New York State even. We have a lot of hospitals even in the Rochester area. And the number of beds that they have, and maybe these are beds, not total beds, I don't know, but the sample number of beds in 24 hospitals. How many people can they accommodate? So go ahead and put this data in your calculator in a data sheet, and I will join you there, and it will be great. And it's Friday. Anybody happy? Friday. You got your note packet? No? No, it's still the same one with the, and yours is maybe white cover versus the gold. And I'm just going to put this calculator over here. And then don't forget, well, put the word beds up at the top of your list. So I'm going to go home. And then at the very end of class today, we remember to clear your calculators so the green class does their own work. New 4. Okay. Everybody got their data in? Okay, so I'm going to sort it just to make my life easier. So I'm going to go up to the top, which I already did, add menu. Remember, sorting is an action. So 1, 6, and then I can just say ascending is fine and hit OK and give it a second. The only reason why I want to sort it is because I want to know the min and the max so I can do my classes, right? Okay, so our smallest number is 127. What's our largest number? There we go, 297. So back on our paper, we need to figure out this at least before we go to our calculator and make our histogram. We want 5 classes. We just need to figure out the width. So remember, you take your max. And you subtract your min. That was 127, right? And we're going to divide by 5. 297. So this is actually a really helpful time to use what's called the scratch pad. So up here between escape and tab is how you can get the scratch pad that does graphing and calculating only, and you hit escape to go back. So it's just like putting a piece of scrap paper on top of your work. So I have that 297 subtract 127 divided by 534. Did everybody else get 34? Okay, but what does that mean we have to do for our class? We need to round it up to 35. Very good. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to let our calculator do the next steps. All right. So back at the calculator, I'm going to escape out of my scratch pad and I'm going to add a document. So Control Doc. And this is when we can visualize. So 4 is putting data in, 5 is visualizations. So 5, come on, buddy. And there's all your points. Now, if you didn't put beds at the top of your list, you won't get any points, right? So now how do we get it to sort down into a dot plot? We have to go over here and say that we want this to be our variable. Okay, can we tell something a little bit about the shape right now? Yeah, so we can start to see that, but we want to see it in bars. So we need to change from a dot plot to a histogram. Am I going too fast? Everybody still good? Parker, are you good at this part? Okay, just making sure. Okay, so now I'm going to go menu, and we want to change our plot type. So these menus are nice. They work their way down. So start at number 1, change it to a histogram. Okay, great. It does its own default, whatever. The next step is on your reference sheet because it's a little bit harder to remember. So we go menu. We want to change our histogram properties. So it's 2 and then 2. And then bin is the same thing as interval is the same thing as a class. So bin settings, and we want equal bin width. So that's why that I think is rough because you're like, I'm changing the axis, but I'm also changing the bins. So we figured out that we wanted a bin width of 35, and our lowest number was 127, right? 129, 127. Okay. Sorry, thanks. And so now when we hit enter, it does that, which is great, but we still can't see the beginning. So we go one more time to menu, and we're going to zoom 5, which is that. And then zoom data is the easiest one to get things to fit. So zoom 2. And there it is. Does anybody want me to repeat any of that? All right, so now we have enough data or enough information to go ahead and make our histogram on our paper. Because when you hover over the bars, where's my, there it is. Okay, it'll tell you the axes. The axes go 127, 162, 197, 232, right? So on and so forth. So you can now determine what your axis is and put that on your paper. And then our highest frequency is 9. Okay, so title, tick, tick, label, label, label. This is number. And this is frequency. get that one right? Oop. You can be careful. I don't want to move it. There we go. Okay, cool. So 98331. No, actually, I can do this at this point probably. Good. Good. That's good. Oh yeah. You're like, ah!
I know, and then I thought I deleted it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yep. So that equal side is very dangerous, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes, it was.
And I was going down the
No, they're all. It says look, make that whole thing. 40 minutes. All right. So you will be fine. Yeah. Check it out. Okay. Yes, sir. All right. All right. You doing okay? You guys in here? It's there. Oh, then why did you say this route?
Because it was
Right? Here we go. All right, you can do the next part with us. Okay, so we have a nice diagram. Is it okay if I keep talking while you're drawing? And if you people are still drawing, is it okay if I keep talking? All right, so we have to talk about shape, but let's go ahead and pull our other stuff off of our calculator so that when we do this, it's easier. So when you want to go back and forth between screens, and it's a little, you're using like the hand tool on the screen sometimes can be a little crazy, especially when it grabs onto things and starts to move things around. So if you ever want to turn pages, it's actually a control function. So you can see like a page over here and a page over there. And then there's actually a couple other things that are kind of interesting. So you can go control and turn a page back. And so that's how you can get back to the first page in your document, or if you have lots of things in your like worksheet here. You can also go control up, and that will show you all the things that you have, and then you can then select where you want to be, which is also kind of a cool feature of this. So it's kind of like your computer having tabs. So I'm going to go back here to my data because I want to run one variable statistics. Are we ready to do that? Yeah. So this is on your blue sheet. Also, we do it a lot. It's finding the information, the 411. So menu. And there's our X bar for statistics. So stat calculations. And then we just want to do one variable statistics. And this, we could have done this in the beginning as well to get our min and max, and maybe that was maybe easier. You know what I mean? Like it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other if you want to sort your data, or if you just want to go and grab your summary statistics. So I'm going to go ahead and just, if there's only one list, you can literally just hit enter and you should be A-okay. You don't have to put anything else in. You don't have to change it to beds. It's just, you want that title up here so when you go to the graph, it will recognize data and pull that data into the next page. So back here, our one variable statistics are right here. So what is X bar, everyone? X bar is the, okay, We need to know this. X bar is the mean. It's our average. So our average is 181.875. So X bar is the mean, which is the average. 181.875. And please start to get used to the fact that you're going to write down decimal places in this class. Okay? All right, the next thing, the median. So scroll down, and that one should just be, I think, a whole number, maybe not. We'll find out. So we scroll down, 167. And now for our mode, I don't know if there were any numbers repeated or not, but we can check. I didn't, oh, there were some 137s. There were two 137s. Was there anything else that was repeated? Did anybody notice when they were typing in data? I think it's just the 137s. All right. Before we move away from summary statistics on our calculator, other ones so that are going to become important, we're going to need the 5-number summary, which is the min to the max, starting this next lesson, and then up above, knowing the sum of your data is sometimes helpful, and then we have 2 different versions of standard deviation, one for sample, one for population. Notice that they're very close to one another, okay? Very close to one another. All right, so let's go back to our piece of paper here. This is actually a really perfect scenario to kind of explain why mode is not really that essential. Did I go way too fast?
I just messed up my whole graph.
Oh, and that's okay. So is there a graph on your paper?
Yeah.
Then you're good. So that's where you're kind of using your...
I actually touched it and
yes.
It went into the other bar and now my numbers messed up.
Yeah, so you can always probably add a page and then redo it real quick. But so... like, once again, it's great that a calculator is handheld and it's so powerful and you can take it places with you, right? You can go sit in Starbucks. And now you can, of course, do that with laptops, right? And you guys all have access to laptops. So I think sometimes, like, getting technology into kids' hands to try to make some of these things easier is really good, but it also could be dangerous, right? Or not dangerous, but like having the ability to have a cursor or a mouse on a calculator was like mind blown kind of a thing. Okay, so don't worry about it. We have what we need, which is the most important thing, and it doesn't have a really great backup button. Like, great, we love Google because we can always back up when we make mistakes. Backup buttons are fantastic. But back to this. So beds. It's not like when we were looking at like siblings and having the highest bar was kind of like what was typical, right? Here, who really cares that the mode is 137? We're talking about hundreds of beds or tens of beds, right? So for me, this measure of center doesn't really make much of a difference. But these two do make a difference, all right? So if we're looking at, I don't know, a pandemic happening, right? 5 years ago, were they looking for hospital beds everywhere? Yeah. And so that's a scary reality thing. And so we can look at this data and we can see that the median is less than the mean. Not by a ton, but then you start to analyze why is that happening. And so when we go ahead and look at the data, you don't have to do this. I do it because I'm teaching you guys right now. I look at that data and I tend to draw something on it to just help you visualize what's happening. So when we look at that data, it's certainly not symmetric. There's more on the left than there is on the right. So what are the words that we use to describe that? Skewed right. Okay, so you would say the shape is skewed right. Now, living in Rochester is actually pretty phenomenal medically. I mean, I know you guys are probably see lots of stuff about U of R and Golisano. We're very blessed to have so many great medical facilities around us. And that's not typical. So when you go farther, has anybody lived in another state besides New York? No? Okay. So like I lived in Indiana for 4 years. My brother lives there now. And it just, when you're, and even like if we go out to like Williamson or like in different parts of New York State, it's very rural, right? You go up to Watertown, like there's not a lot of medical facilities. And as those things close down due to funding or whatever, we do have concerns about having enough beds for everyone that needs them at certain times. So interesting data. I would be interested to get our data for our local hospital, how many beds there are. Right? And you guys have Unity, right? Unity's right up on Long Pond. Isn't it called Unity? Yeah, yes. My mom was there at one point. She broke her femur. Osteoporosis. She now has a steel rod. It was scary though. It was when I was student teaching it happened. I was like, my mommy's in the hospital. It's very scary. Okay, so there's that. So we kind of are starting to pull things together. We're not just getting displays, we're getting words, we're getting more numbers. Yay. All right, so let's go to Boxplots. What time do we get done? I always forget, it's a Friday. 10 o'clock? All right, I'm worried because there's so many people out, but we just have to keep going. All right, Boxplots. We did a little bit of Boxplots with our stuff with Barry Bonds and Babe Ruth. And we saw that Barry Bonds had that really long whisker, right? Because he had an outlier. The thing with Boxplots is it does really simplify our data. Like it takes it down to just 5 numbers. There could be 1,000 pieces of data represented here. We wouldn't know unless they told us, right? Because that's all we have left. Now, when we look at the pieces or the components, you guys can see that we have our median is always going to be in the center, right? And then we have Q1, which is the first quartile, meaning 25%. And we have Q3, which is the third quartile, or at the 75% mark. So now this box plot has been modified. It has had a special calculation done to it to see if we have significant outliers. So there's no significant outliers on this side, which means this is the highest piece of data. It is the maximum. But on the lower half, we have 2 pieces of data that are outside a range that people decided, some statisticians, the rule of thumb, right? Somebody has decided that it's outside the norm for what's there. That's why when that data was in that thing, it did the top, it took out the 10% and the 10% on this side, right? So these 2 pieces of data are outliers. This piece of data is the lowest piece of data. It's a minimum. And this is a piece of data right here. We know its value. Its value is 2.5. It's just the smallest piece of data that's quote unquote normal, right? Or worth looking at, or is not too extreme. Okay? So that piece of data is not the minimum, but it is the end of what we call the tail of the box plot. All right. Now, this box plot, if you ignore the outliers, the tails are about the same size and the 2 parts of the boxes are about that size, right? You can see almost symmetry in it. When we look at this one down here, though, these boxes are both fairly skewed. And it's kind of weird because we're used to looking at vertical to see shape, right? When we look at these, we look at how things are compressed. So can you guys see that there's 50% of the data right here, right? And then if I take a bigger circle, there's 75% of the data in that part. So when I look at that box plot, I can tell that it's actually skewed, right? And it's skewed to the right. So it feels a little bit weird, but we actually can tell shape from a box and whisker. So when we look at this one, we can see, hey, up here is 75% of my data. You know, I'm going to have this thing that has a hump up here, and it's going to be skewed down here. And, you know, it's kind of hard to put all these pictures on top of each other, but this one is definitely going to be skewed left. So then when we go back up to the one at the top, even though it has outliers, the rest of it is fairly uniform or symmetric, right? So it's okay to say that this one is symmetric, even with those two outliers. Because remember, it's counting on every single piece of data. Overall, though, it is a symmetric shape with just some junk on the end. Okay? All right, so our box plots. I'm looking for my answer key to see if I've missed sharing any good news about these box plots. Double checking. Skewed spread. All right. How much time do we have? We're doing one more. We're doing a little bit more. You ready to turn the page? Turn the page. I'm not going to give you any homework. Is that good? There you go. That's the deal. You have to take notes, but there's no homework. Yeah. All right. Here we go. So let's continue to use, this is a set of data about 12 employees. Of course, it's made up. It's in, and these numbers are in the thousands. So my annual salary is $39,000. My annual salary is $34,000. The lowest paid person is $29,000. The highest paid person is $185,000. Guess who that person is? The boss. Okay. So we're going to do this one by hand. We obviously can do all this stuff in our calculator, but it's good to understand where the numbers come from. So remember, if we have 12 pieces of data, there's no number in the middle, though, right? So we would divide that into a pile of 6 and another pile of 6. All right, so let's go find the middle of the data. So I count up to my 6th piece of data, and I draw a line after it. And so I've got 6 pieces of data on each side of that line. But the 34 is not 35, so we got to take the average or find the middle of those two numbers. Our median is going to be 34.5 or $34,500. And now we do the same thing. You have this set of data of 6 to divide it into 2 equal pieces is going to be 3 and 3. So I count up 1, 2, 3. Hey, there's a 34 on each side. So our lower quartile or Q1 is 34. We're going to do the same thing on the top half, 3 and 3. Now here we have a 39 and a 43, and if you're feeling tired or can't seem to visualize it, you would just take the average of those two numbers. So 39 plus 43 divided by 2, and that's going to give you 41. The total is 82 divided in half, 41. So this is Q3. And then I usually write down my min and my max at the end, especially if I'm doing things by hand, because I don't want to cross out or accidentally ignore them when I'm dividing things into parts. So now this is going to be my minimum, and this is going to be my maximum. So if data is in order and it's not a huge set of data, it's easy to just do it by hand. All right, can you guys answer the 5 questions that are right there? A, B, C, D, E. Do you understand, or do I need to teach you more? Not too hard, right? And so we can actually see the box and whisker come alive if we do something like this, right? On our data. We know that's breaking it into quarters, 25%. So what percent of the data is below Q1? 25%. What percent of the data is below quarter 3? So 3 quarters have already happened, 75%. What percent of the data is above Q1? That is also 75%. What percent of the data is above the median? 50%. And then the data within the IQR. What does IQR stand for? Do you remember? All right. Inter, quartile, range. So remember that the range is max minus min, and it's 100% of our data. Even data that's extremely large or small. So when we look at a center and we look at the spread, we want to kind of focus on that middle. And for box and whisker plots, it's focusing on the middle 50%, right? It's Q3 minus Q1. So if I were to talk, I'm going to scroll back up real quick. If I were to talk about a typical salary at this company, I wouldn't say a typical salary is the 185, would I? I would say a typical salary is between 34 and 41,000, because that's the middle 50%. Now, this could be somebody that's just been hired, right? Maybe they're an apprenticeship. This is, the owner. This is the manager, right? They are at different levels than the other people. And that, you guys see the system all the time. You go to McDonald's, there's manager, there's assistant manager, there's employees, there's part-time, there's full-time, there's shift leaders, right? There's the brand new person. But we do have minimum wage to kind of make sure we're all starting at a level that's not quite livable, but at a level that's fair. Okay? All right. So when we move on, and we'll do this next class, we're going to work on calculating outliers. These formulas are on your reference sheet. So next class, try to make sure you find your blue reference sheet. It's probably in your folder. We will be doing these calculations and looking at how they affect our box plots, and then what do they mean when we're looking at data. And then we get to go back and make a visit to our friend. I think we're going to get to go back to Moneyball eventually. We'll get there. Yay! Wasn't a terrible lesson, was it? No. I need to talk more.